BulkLoads Podcast, your number one resource for everything bulk freight trucking.
All right, that's the content.
Evan, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we had a conversation, I think, a month or so ago, and wanted to continue that conversation, especially for our audience as it pertains to truck parking. But give us the lowdown of what Truck Parking Club is.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. We're a two-sided marketplace where we help truckers find and reserve parking through our mobile app and website, and we help property owners and businesses monetize their extra space with truck parking. That can be a trucking company with extra space in their yard, a tow truck company, truck repair shop, CDL school, warehouse, any space that's suitable for truck parking. We can get them in the business of truck parking same day.
Nice. How long ago did you guys start this?
A little over a couple years ago, I started the company.
Yeah. Talk about, and this is interesting because in our space, and again, I don't, we're on the load board side and we do factoring and insurance and all this. I guess I don't hear the chatter as much, but talk about the problem with truck parking. I know just before this, we're going to talk about, you actually have a friend, a Bolt guy that uses your all's platform, but talk about, it seems like now there's been more and more attention to truck parking or the issues with truck parking. So obviously solutions like yours, but kind of explain to us the problem in the industry.
Yeah. So some of the stats that are thrown around, one space for every 11 trucks. I think you can argue, does every single one of those trucks need parking on a daily basis or not already have parking? But I think that shows to the severity of the problem, whether that's one space for every 5 trucks or 11 trucks or whatever. And then I think the biggest stat is that the average driver spends 56 minutes daily looking for parking. So, it's free parking, but is it really free if on average you're spending 56 minutes? And I think another thing that's not really considered is how often are you shutting down hours early because you find a spot that's available at a rest area or truck stop? What is that over the course of a year? Especially for owner operators, what's that worth to you? How many more loads could you have hauled? Those are the couple stats that are thrown around by some of the associations that I think are kind of show to the issue, but. As you kind of alluded to, I think it affects, some drivers more than others, some, seasoned drivers less than newer drivers, right? You talk with, my friend that runs Bulk. He doesn't have a horrible time with it. He's been out there 20 years, right? He knows what's going on, and that's great, right? That's the perks of being a veteran in your industry. But I think, it does affect some more than others and different, depending on what you're hauling and what your needs are.
Hey guys, we are getting so much interest for our Bulk Freight Conference 2025. We started this 2 years ago. We've had 2 phenomenal conferences. It keeps getting bigger. Our first conference, we had over 200. This last one, over 500. And we have a lot of people that want to show up. We want to make sure that you can get your ticket reserved. It's going to be the 3rd week of April. We hope that you can make it, but go ahead right now, go to bulkfreightconference.com and put your email address in there, and we will notify you when tickets go on sale. That way you will be the first one to be notified before they sell out. It's going to be an amazing show. We have a new venue that's going to be even bigger. We're talking actually having show trucks inside the venue, breakout sessions, and man, just a world of events to get you connected. I was just talking yesterday, had dinner with a lady that was at the conference last year and just talked about the connections that she made and the business that she's doing now by meeting those clients face to face. So we want you to be there, man. Go to bulkfreightconference.com, enter your email address, get signed up. It's going to be phenomenal. We'll see you there. God bless. So give us the bare bone of kind of how the platform works especially from a driver standpoint.
Yeah. So really, as I was building out the app, and we continue to iterate as all things, but I really wanted to make it something where any driver could pick it up and figure out how to use it in real time and not have issues, right? And you're never going to get that to 100%, but just making it super easy to use. So you can go to truckparkingclub.com or download our app. And on the homepage, you're going to be able to see our map immediately to get an idea. We have over 1,400 locations right now. We add 7 or 8 new locations per day on average. And from there, you can click go to your current location, and it's going to zoom in on where you are. So if you're looking near you, that's one easy way to do it. You could also search if you're just looking, hey, I'm going to be in Phoenix next week. I always have trouble with parking there. You can look it up in advance and see what we've got and see what you're going to be working with. From there, you can book, depending on the location, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly basis. We get a ton of daily bookings, whether that's overnight or multi-day, depending on what the needs are. If you're dropping a trailer, you're flying home, flying back, and you want to leave it for a few days, leave your tractor trailer for a few days, whatever the case may be. And then from there, it's just asking general information about your booking, putting in your payment info, and booking. And from there, in real time, you're going to get a confirmation of your booking, all the reservation information you need. Whether you may have to check in at the location with security or the owner, whatever the property is, but you'll get all that information given to you. Not so dissimilar from like an Airbnb.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because you bring up a couple different scenarios, because it's not just some guy needing overnight parking. It could be something where a guy is going to need a week or a month or something secure. And I think the way it sounds like you can kind of vet or accommodate specifically to that trucker's needs. If he needs to leave the truck there for the weekend and fly somewhere or go home or whatever. I want you to speak of this because I was actually looking on the app before this conversation, and there's really 2 spots here in our town of Springfield. I remember one because it's right on 44 highway, Bob's truck parking, and he's got a big old sign out there on the highway. And if you go, it's all secure, and you pull up there, he's got everything from trucks in there to RVs and boats. And I mean, it can be a slew of things. And I think he's got like a monthly rate or just an overnight rate. You guys are partnered with those locations to basically steer more drivers and more traffic to them, correct?
Yeah. So in the business, we would call them truck parking operators, or some of them are kind of self-storage or outdoor storage of sorts. Sounds like that guy's specifically outdoor storage, doing a little bit of everything that can be stored outdoors. Really, our use case for them is that we can bring more business to them. But also on top of that, what we found as we built out the business is that, like you mentioned, Bob's Truck Parking, or a lot of these other truck parking operators out there, is we do all the back end stuff too. A lot of these guys, they don't have 24/7, 365 customer service to take those 2 a.m. phone calls. They may not even have payment processors. They may be running everything through like a Venmo. They're very likely not to be marketing their property in any significant manner. We market it, really all across the web with tens of thousands of drivers on our app on a weekly basis. We have a collection. So if someone doesn't pay, or maybe their card just bounces, a guy like Bob's Truck Parking, he could be spending hours a month on just saying, hey, your payment failed. I need you to update your card. We do all that in-house, right? And so what we found is, even with them, we're like, hey, you park 100 trucks there. Let us handle all that. We'll handle all the back end stuff. So you can just go buy another yard, keep expanding. So it's really pushing more revenue and optimizing their operations.
Yeah, that's really good. And you were on our previous conversation that we had, though, you were talking about, because I was floating the idea of like, if I know real estate down in this area, you guys are always looking to expand. And it's not a matter of, if you can push, but it's like, hey, if you get real estate, we can bring you traffic. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. And we were talking specifically about truck parking operators, but that's, I don't know, a third of our business or something, but it's really any piece of real estate that is suitable for truck parking, or you can make it suitable for truck parking. At this point, with the demand that we've built, it really doesn't matter. We continue to be amazed when we add a location, in the middle of South Dakota, North Dakota, whatever, in the Midwest, across places like Kentucky, where I'm from. Like, it doesn't matter. We push demand to that location because, as we all know, freight moves everywhere. There's a need everywhere, and just because you're in a place that has a lot of land doesn't necessarily mean it's a place that's suitable these days, as everyone on that's listening is probably aware, is you can't pull into that grocery store anymore like you used to back in the day, because you have these predatory towing companies or municipalities that are hypersensitive to like booting and giving fines just for trying to find a place to take your 10-hour break. So that's all kind of created this need for drivers to go and look for parking, and fortunately we're the leader in that, and we care very deeply about delivering a great experience. So to answer your question, yeah, we can push demand to really any piece of real estate as long as it's suitable.
It's interesting as we've evolved, and I look at trucking back in the day where you had more farmers or rural based people driving trucks. Well, they bring the truck back to the farm, but today more of our drivers, I wouldn't say, but like it looks like more of them live in the cities, municipalities where they don't have places to park their trucks, so they need a designated spot to put it. I mean, I can even remember growing up, like a lot of truckers, they would back their truck up at the local gas station. They had spots where they would, and I don't know if they paid the owner of that gas station. But talk about this, and as far as it goes, like most truck stops and some of these big fuel stops, do most of them charge for trucking, and are you guys partner with them? Because it seemed like it used to be there wasn't, but now most of them, now they've gotten competitive where if you want to park at a certain big name truck stop, like there's actually fees involved.
Yeah, so it'll really just depend on who you're talking about. So most all truck stops charge for parking today. The only one that hasn't yet is Love's. And I've heard through the grapevine and just kind of being in the business that they're starting to experiment with it some at a very few locations. I was out in Midland, Texas a few months ago, and they had a sign up that's like paying customers only. No, nobody else can park here. So it appears that they're looking at it, but historically truck stops didn't charge for parking, or they would have like some like prime storefront type parking, so you're closer to the store. And as you've seen the business evolve in this lack of parking, and literally just the fact that there's no ROI on building more parking anymore for a truck stop, or inherently in a lot of situations that it just doesn't make sense from the cost of development and the cost to purchase the land. Paid truck parking has become a thing at truck stops and a lot of places just in general. And that's just through the market, through supply and demand. And I would say from a truck stop perspective, I think if any of them could not charge, I think they would. But I think the business has changed in the sense of you have a lot of drivers that aren't spending money in stores. They're being more cost conscious and perhaps having a large fridge in their cab, and they're buying everything at Walmart because they can save money over time. And so you get these parking lots full of drivers, but there's not as much money spent there. And so ultimately that's required truck stops to monetize their parking. And so truck stops are about 5% or maybe 4% of our business now. So it's not a huge part of our business, but inherently we have, understood the dynamics around it. And I think historically, it hasn't been the case. I just think just from literally a business, the truck stop as a business trying to make ends meet and figure it out, has converted to charging for parking. So, and I mean, you could do a podcast on just that one topic alone, because it's quite complex, and it's like you feel for drivers because it's changing. But I think from what I've seen, it's truck stops aren't printing money like some people think they do.
Yeah, for me, it's just another cost now to the driver, which I feel for, and how does he absorb that or pass that cost along? Because again, and that's why I want to get to kind of just numbers, like I'm sure maybe you've done some of the research. On average, how much can one operator spend a year just in truck parking? Because most of these, and even talk about the ranges, because I know it probably depends on supply and demand, but I guess low range parking to high range parking when it comes to some of these spots.
Yeah. And on the first part of that, yeah, it's 100%. You feel for drivers, especially drivers that all they've known is, Johnny's truck stop being free parking, and then one day they show up and it's paid parking, right? Like that sucks. You've been parking there 20 years. You probably spend money with them. But from everything we've heard from truck stops, which, like I said, it's not a big part of our business really, but we've figured it out, or we've heard from them as they come on our platform, is about 50% of drivers that park in their lots don't come in their store. So it creates this very weird thing where they want 100%. They want drivers to park there and then spend money there, whether it's fuel or buying stuff in the store or restaurant or whatever. But then also at the same time, you feel for drivers because it's like how much can they spend? And I think where we've worked on educating on what we're doing and everything outside of really truck stop properties is not wasting that 56 minutes driving around looking for parking or shutting down hours in advance. And especially for like an owner operator, that's dollars and cents. So if you can get 60 more minutes down the road, what's that worth? What is 90 more minutes down the road? What's that worth over the course of a year, right? Can that pay itself back where you can plan accordingly? And then to the second part of your question is, yes, across the Midwest, you're looking at anywhere from $10 to $20 per 24 hours at least on our platform. But in some of these mega markets, like Southern California, LA, Long Beach, Newark, New Jersey, you're looking at $40, $50, $70 for 24 hours of parking. The interesting thing about it is that a lot of times it's worth it to a driver. I mean, the free market's an amazing thing, right? Because it's worth it to the driver to be closer to, let's say, Long Beach, to the port, whatever they're running, rather than them driving, depending on traffic, of course, in LA, but like going out to Ontario and spending a couple hours getting out there, a couple hours getting back, depending on traffic. What's that costing the driver, right? So the free market with someone that's got some spaces around LA, Long Beach, that's what the market's being driven up to, because the driver's saying, well, if I got to drive out to Ontario to get parked and then come back, what's that going to cost me anyway? I'd rather just pay that here. So, the free market ultimately is determining the price on what a driver, owner, operator would pay.
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that. So obviously those markets you mentioned are probably the ones that are probably the toughest spots to find parking. Like you said, Long Beach. I mean, so I guess the West Coast, Northeast, those markets tend to go. Okay.
South Florida is insane. Just almost nothing down there. When you get to like Miami, I don't even know if we really have anything down there. We have very little, if anything. But yeah, ultimately the market is determining the price, right? And whatever a driver is willing to pay, depending on how they can make sense of it from economics. Because I can assure you, if they can make sense of it to drive all the way out to the east to Ontario to the Inland Empire to find a parking spot and then come back, and they save $100, they're going to do it. So I think at the end of the day, it's just the free market determining on what it's worth, and is it worth it for that driver to be paying that price to perhaps take better loads that are more cost effective? And obviously that's another podcast in itself, right? Just getting into the weeds of that, but it's really interesting stuff.
Talk about because our subscriber base, we're very tied to agriculture. There are people with real estate and locations, but if someone said, hey, I got land off the highway here, and never thought about it before, but maybe this could be a good spot for truck parking. Can you kind of walk through that process of, I guess, I know you can accommodate different levels from security and lights and but just talk to like maybe someone out there looking to maybe build a truck parking spot, kind of what you all would expect to use to get traffic there.
Yeah. And to be clear, we have hundreds and hundreds of parking locations, truck parking locations, just like what you said. Someone with a farm that has some extra parking. They're already parking their own equipment there, and they have 5 extra spaces that they could park tractor trailers. Um, that's we have a lot of locations just like that. So it's really any space that you can. And a lot of these times there isn't much question to it because the guys are already parking their own trucks there, right? They're parking their own tractor trailers there, and they've always got 5 extra spaces, 15 extra spaces, whatever. So it isn't a huge question. But the main things we focus on is, access into the property, right? Making sure they can enter and exit the property, get turned around, have no issues, and wherever they're parking, that it is suitable. Can they drop a loaded trailer there? Is the ground stable at the location? And can they get turned around, get parked suitably, easily, safely, and then turn around and get exited from that location? And that's really the bare minimum, and that's what we focus on. And at this point, we've vetted tens of thousands of locations. We have 1,400, so we do have to turn a lot away. But a lot of times our best locations are guys that are already driving trucks in some fashion. They already have their own trucking company. They have their own local trucking company, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Now I figured you want someone that kind of knows trucking. I mean, if you're going to build a road in or access points, you're going to be able to accommodate that. And yeah, you said, especially from a drop and hook on a loaded trailer, that they know that they're going to have you got to have some pretty good stable ground to make that work. Kind of last question, and we'll kind of land here. You were talking that you're getting ready to hit the road. You're going out west, but you've done this before, but you'll actually hop in the cab with a bulk trucking company or operator that runs a pneumatic and really spend 8 days out of the road. Talk about that. That's actually a pretty good, that's an awesome idea and a way to experience that to learn that, but even to apply what you see on the road back to your business.
100%. Yeah. I don't come from the industry. I come from real estate, and I've immersed myself. Half of our team is former drivers, and gotten to know some really awesome drivers out there, and owner operators, and got to know a guy a couple years ago that is from Kentucky as well. And about this time last year, there's a show out west called Manifest, which is like a combination of transportation tech companies. There's some carriers, executives at carriers, and there's the works. There's a little bit of everything out there. It's a huge show. And I was talking to Chris about it, and he ended up having a load out there, and we ended up going to the show, me and him and a bunch of other guys. And just so happened, I was talking to him a few weeks ago. We talk all the time, and he was like, "Man, I've got a load out to Fernley again." And I was like, "No way." So this all come up in like the last few days that we put it all together again. So just so happened he's going to be out there. So what we did last year, what we'll do this year is I'll hop in the truck with him. He's got a double bunk, and we'll head out of there. I can't remember where we're going. I think he picks up in Fernley and comes back, or we head out of Vegas go straight to Fernley. I can't remember this time, but I'll go on the road with him. And ultimately what I'm doing is trying to get a better understanding from a guy that doesn't come from the industry. Obviously I can read and I can talk about and I can listen to and all this stuff, but some of the lessons I learned last year were invaluable. Just understanding how the business works. And we went last year, like we went up through Wyoming. We ended up picking up some type of chalk product in Wyoming, and that was really cool. And you're talking about some of these farms and stuff. We ended up on several small farms, and it was really cool to see. And we were actually, just like you mentioned, talking about the same thing about how many of these locations got a couple spots that you could, a tractor trailer, if for whatever reason they're out this way, could have a place to park where they very likely wouldn't know that it's a place they could park otherwise. But yeah, I don't know how many days actually at this point. It'll all depend on kind of his loads and stuff. And like last year, ended up just popping in like Charlotte, North Carolina. He just dropped me off by the airport, and I got an Uber to the airport and went home because there was just no way, based on some of the loads he was running and some of the conferences I had, there was no way I could go any further. But I'll go for a handful of days and continue learning, continue being out there doing it. It's easy to easy to talk about it. It's easy to listen to other people talk about it, but getting out there and doing it, got some really invaluable lessons, I think. And one thing I'll say quickly, and we can close it out, but one night, this is he's 20 years on the road, veteran. And one night we were coming into 80. We were all the way over in Wyoming, and we were going to be headed back east. And this is late, like, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock. He's still got a couple hours on his clock, but he's like, Evan, I know what's about to happen. Like, we're going to start heading east and we're not going to find anything. He's like, I think I saw something back behind that restaurant over there, some trucks parked. Best thing we can do is park there so we don't risk it in an hour and then we're caught out where we don't know what's going on. So we fueled up. Luckily, we found a spot behind a restaurant, this little mom and pop restaurant. And that was my first experience with, like, we looked for 30 minutes and there was just nothing within any reasonable distance of like finding parking. And so fortunately, this is just a veteran. He knew he started looking for parking before he even told me he was looking for parking. Cause that's just, he's just a veteran. He knows what's up. And he's like, the best thing we can do is go right back over there to that restaurant. I had no idea what he was talking about, but he's like, I think I saw a spot open over there and we need to park there now. Cause we're going to end up having to park in a not great spot. So that was an interesting lesson for sure. And just what drivers have to go through that you think would just be a given.
Yeah, this has been eye-opening to me because I never realized that how much of a struggle, but how much you have to be thinking about that ahead of time. You got to be thinking hours down the road. Okay, where am I going to be? Do I know parking that's going to be down there? Because again, otherwise, quote, you're a sitting duck out there if you're not, trying to figure out ahead of time. But also just from the efficiency standpoint, I never really put those two and two together. Like, if you got to shut down early, you're shortchanging yourself. And we know what happens. There's all these things I would say these inconsistencies or these things that happen on the road, whether you're waiting in line somewhere or traffic but like I said, this could be another one of those from a productivity standpoint. If it's like, hey, this is the only stop for the next whatever, I'll have to pull over here because I don't know if there's stuff up there. Yeah, I could run another hour or X amount of miles at X amount per mile, but I'm going to shut down early. So that's just, you add that up over the course of a year, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's really the emphasis, specifically for owner operators, right? Because company drivers are a little less sensitive to all that, right? Because it's a little different for typically with the way that they get paid. But from an owner operator standpoint, if you can truly get another hour, 90 minutes, even 2 hours down the road because you have a space built through the network, through Truck Parking Club, that, over the course of the year, that can be very significant money, even though maybe you're paying $20 for that spot. If it gets you an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours further down the road with efficiency, not zigging and zagging.
Another couple $100 in revenue.
There you go. And that's how we think about it. That's how we think about it. Now, where we got to do our part at Truck Parking Club, we're at 1,400 locations. We want to be to 10,000 in the next 20 months. So at that point, almost anywhere you are, we have an option for you, right? And that's where we have to get as Truck Parking Club to really deliver on that, hey, pretty much anywhere you are, we're within 10 minutes of you. Like that's really what we're hyper focused on.
I said last question. I got one more just tail. Like with Truck Parking Club though, any other add-ons or other things that are offered through Truck Parking Club?
So at this point, really no. We're very slow for like partnerships and things of that nature. Okay. We do think there's a really good use for like a benefits marketplace where if you book through Truck Parking Club at least once or some type of subscription where you get, X discount with all these other vendors that we believe in and we trust and we will put our name behind. Today though, really the only things we have that we're rolling out soon is like a wallet deposit program where you ACH in, you get 3% more, stuff like that. That's actually not even publicly announced yet, but it's coming out very, very soon. But outside of that today, it's just a pay-per-use. So it isn't like you've got to pay $20 a month to even have access to these locations. You just pay when you can use it, when you need us. Use us when you need us is what we say. We're a tool in the tool belt. There will be options for subscriptions, benefits programs, insurance, like on like a collision basis or stuff like that. All that stuff will come over time, but right now we're just hyper focused on getting drivers safely parked and making them more efficient.
Yeah, I can see as you all develop and get more market share, more trucks in the system with spots. Yeah, there'll be you'll have critical mass where you can start looking at some of these other benefits that you could roll out to these drivers. But Evan, this has been awesome. I know our audience and listeners will value this episode. We know that it's a problem out there in the industry. Again, I said earlier, I don't hear it as much, maybe just some of our guys are in the rural area, but our guys are delivering into city markets too, and manufacturers that are in the city. So I know that it can be a strain with that. So man, hey, thank you for taking the time to come on the BulkLoads podcast. We sure appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Love what you guys have done at BulkLoads.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast I did with Evan Shelley, the co-founder and CEO of truckparkingclub.com. I think you've noticed our podcast structure looked a little bit different in this episode, and even future episodes are going to look different. We're going to have just a regular intro. We're not going to come on and speak beforehand. The outro we will still do. But as we've evolved, we've started these trucking podcasts back in 2018. And as we've evolved, we've realized what people want and more importantly, what they don't want. And we want to keep catering to the content and activity people want. So starting here in the next couple months, we're going to start doing more of our podcast shows on the road, which requires myself traveling a lot more, which is probably going to be more bi-weekly. So starting in March or April, most of our podcasts will be now released bi-weekly. You'll be able to view them on YouTube. As always, the audio will be shared through all of their podcast platforms, but wanted to give you a heads up on how that structure will be. So just be on the lookout in the future. Podcast structure will start being bi-weekly. So every 2 weeks, we'll still have a featured video, which you've seen myself do. If you haven't, go to our YouTube channel and check those out. But we just see that more of our subscribers and users are finding our videos much more valuable because of us going out on the road, actually interviewing and talking with these successful business owners, and that information that we can give back to you to consume as a listener. So just wanted to kind of prepare you for that. Last but not least, we also will still always do prayer requests. So if you have a prayer, don't ever hesitate to send it to prayer@bulkloads.com. We want to pray for those out there. It's something that we take seriously in this office and will continue as we evolve as a company. So last but not least, I'll close this in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity that you've given us this platform, the BulkLoads podcast, to be a light out there for people in this industry and to share your good news. And Lord, just to give people good, positive, clean content that they can consume and hopefully find value from. Lord, as we continue our podcast and change the structure, Lord, just guide us our way, Lord, that we continue to do this and serve our members that serve us. So Lord, we just pray a special blessing over that. Lord, for those out there that do have prayer requests, we lift those up to you, Lord, that you can comfort them in this time. Lord, thank you so much for all that you do. Amen. Thank you as always for listening to the BulkLoads podcast. Don't forget, we have our conference coming up soon. Make sure and get registered. We are excited for that. So thank you so much for listening to the BulkLoads podcast. And as always, God bless.